So you were saying 85% of Kiwi retirees are not financially prepared.
Correct. 85% of Kiwis are not sorted at retirement.
That's a shocking number.
So I had an epiphany. I had been working throughout my life to improve my career and my professional expertise, but the company I was working for, they had a restructure and I was made redundant. I started learning about the way he presented his plans, and I was kicking myself and saying, good Lord, why didn't I think of this? And why didn't I start doing this for myself 10 years ago? So from then onwards, I have made it my mission to help people who are on that kind of pathway at different stages of their life. It doesn't matter, because we've got a lot of baby boomers going into retirement. There's not going to be enough money for superannuation.
Naveed Balouch is a seasoned financial planner with over a decade of experience helping Kiwis achieve their financial goals.
Once a pilot and a storyteller in the media, Naveed now helps hundreds of people reach their financial goal and financial freedom.
His holistic approach combines principles from aviation and behavioral finance to guide his clients towards long-term financial security and independence.
There's no financial literacy taught at school. If we go back to when superannuation was originally introduced, job security was high. So nowadays it's been disrupted.
I can tell this is going to be a really heavy conversation.
My name is Naveed Balouch, and I've got a very multicultural background. My father's family was from the Middle East and Persia. My mother's from England. I grew up in the subcontinent in Pakistan. I went to boarding school. I started my career as a pilot. I've got a bachelor's in journalism and English. I've got a master's in management, and I've worked in all sorts of industries and in various countries as well.
And what do you do now?
Now, for the last 10 years, I've been helping Kiwis improve their financial well-being through the provision of financial planning and advice services.
Why are you doing this? What's the push and the vision behind why you do this?
Well, it really starts with my own story and the fact that I was ill-prepared for what happened to me. So I had an epiphany. This is about 10 years ago. I had been working throughout my life to improve my career and my professional expertise, and I'd reached sort of the height of where I thought I could be at that point. And I'd over-delivered on my targets and KPIs, as I always do. But the company I was working for, they had a restructure and I was made redundant. So this is in my 50s, and it was a bit of a shock to me. And at that point, I kind of realized that I didn't have a plan B. So I put myself out as a business coach, and my first client was a financial advisor. So when I was helping my first client, I was helping him with his business, I started learning about the way he presented his plans, and I was kicking myself and saying, good Lord, why didn't I think of this? And why didn't I start doing this for myself 10 years ago, and I wouldn't be in such a vulnerable position? So from then onwards, I have made it my mission to help people who are on that kind of pathway at different stages of their life, it doesn't matter, but to have that awareness of the need not to rely on your employers, the government, or any external factor, but to take it upon yourselves to create your own financial future. Because 85% of Kiwis are not sorted at retirement.
That's a shocking number.
Yep. It is, but it's not just Kiwi-centric. Wherever there's aging populations, it's worse in Japan, for example, Singapore, some parts of Europe, England, because we've got a lot of baby boomers going into retirement. And the superannuation is paid by the income tax payers. So the ratio of taxpayers to retirees is reducing. It used to be 9 to 1. Now it's 4 to 1, so it's halved. And in 20 years, there's going to be 2 taxpayers for every retiree. There's not going to be enough money for superannuation. So by the time you retire, Mina, there's going to be very little in the kitty to pay for your.
What does that really mean in real terms?
What it means is that currently your average cost of living for a couple is $1,200 per week in New Zealand across all sectors.
That's like this is how much it costs to live?
The average cost of living, correct.
In terms of rent or mortgage or
everything,
food
your cost of living, food, all the essentials.
Right.
I'm not talking about the discretionary spends, the holidays and the bottles of wine and things like that, but just your basic cost of living.
I can tell this is going to be a really heavy conversation.
Well, yes and no. So it's $1,200 a week. The current superannuation for a couple is $800 a week. So that's a $400 gap. So when somebody goes to the retirement age and they've been expecting to be complemented or supplemented by their superannuation and relying on that, it's already $400 a week less. And over 20 years, because the average expectancy is 85 to 87 currently, so you're going to be 20 years of life, and life expectancy is increasing actually. That's about a $400,000 deficit. So that's what 85% of Kiwis are facing. And because there are more people going into retirement and less taxpayers, it's getting worse. So that's why it's important, and that's why I have made it my mission to help the maximum number of people I can to change their course, take stock of where they are, and understand that they can set the targets for their future and they can aim for something better.
So you were saying 85% of Kiwi retirees are not financially prepared.
Correct.
This is retirees. People have been retired for...
So it's the current age of 65. The current age of 65. So let's say they were earning $120,000 when they were both working. So what the rule of thumb is that you need about 70% of your working life income for your retirement, right?
What does that mean? Like how can you have 70% of your retirement money?
Well,
explain that to me. I didn't get that.
Well, again, if you've been saving, and now look, we've got KiwiSaver, which started only recently, really. So KiwiSaver, you're putting 3% of your gross income into KiwiSaver, and if you're a couple and you're both doing that, and hopefully if you've started early and you've done that for 30, 40 years, that should be a sizable amount. So that will also be a source of income. If you've bought investment properties, you get rent from it, that's a source of income, plus you can sell them and you can get more. So there are means for the sources of income, but a large number of Kiwis are exclusively reliant on superannuation only, and that doesn't pay for the 20 years they need in retirement.
It's not enough.
No. Absolutely not enough. So
why do you think they do that then? Why do you think Kiwi retirees, people who have about to retire or have retired, why aren't they prepared?
Okay, so there's a bit of a history about this, and like I said, my own story actually kind of bears this out. But there's, for example, there's no financial literacy taught at school. That's one thing, right? Because
if every time someone told me
yeah.
this very sentence, I would have been rich by now. The fact that no one is teaching financial literacy at schools. Why are we doing that, do you think?
Well, again, because look, if we go back to when superannuation was originally introduced or was in vogue, let's say the 1930s, the industrial age. So, there was a lot of jobs, there was a lot of industries being set up worldwide, and the superannuation was a means to encourage senior employees to retire and make space for new employees. So the government and of course the industrial sector, they wanted to incentivize this. if you look at the history of superannuation or pensions, it actually starts in the 17th century, right? It's a way to guarantee, in those days, soldiers who've gone through many battles, that when they're old and infirm and they can't work, they're looked after, right? So it's a welfare thing. So in those days, there's 4 key metrics that made it a viable option for retirement. The first one is that money held its value in, pre-1930s. It was linked to gold and silver, right? That means if you're earning a certain amount of money, it held its buying power over time. Now, for example, you just go to the supermarket, and what cost you $10 last year is costing you $20 already. So there's inflation. So the value of money is going down. So the buying power of your superannuation in the future is going to be eroded. One. The second thing was that in those days, job security was high. Right? Now, I remember my father saying, get a job, stick with it, the same company, you work through your life there, and then you retire, you get a gold watch, and you get your pension. Right? So nowadays, it's been disrupted. The job security is very low, with the introduction of AI, technology. Businesses are looking after themselves. So an employee really is in a vulnerable position. So there's the power of money, the buying power of money is eroded. Job security is going down. The third thing is life expectancy has increased. So in the 1930s, the average life expectancies was in the 60s, 67. So the government really had to only pay or look after the elderly for a short time, on average. Now it's 87 for women and about 85 for men. So that's 20 years plus that we've got people who are not working anymore or don't want to work. So who's going to look after them for 20 years? That's a lot of money that you need for each single person. In the past, it wasn't so because of disease and wars and just bad health, really, that people didn't live that long. So, people were all right. They used to retire, live for 10 years, go play bingo, and they were happy. And this is what the baby boomers' parents were like, and that was kind of through osmosis transferred to the baby boomers. And they found out that it's a lie. None of those things works. And so basically you have to really, you have to be aware of all these things. And financial literacy and bringing that financial awareness, that's what we do. And that's what more and more people need to get onto.
I can't help myself but to think, as someone who's in the financial sector, who almost had to reinvent yourself. You had a really eventful, history of great accomplishment. Even trained as a pilot, and that's really fascinating. If I think about someone who's a pilot and now he's into the financial sector, and if there's any relationship between the two.
Well, the truth is there is. Everything that I've learned in my education and my career, it has an application. And that's why I believe my engagement with clients is very powerful, because I've got a very broad spectrum of experience. So just to give you an idea, I actually use 3 key principles of flying in financial planning, and it's very relevant, right? And of course, I'm not sure if we have time for going into it. So for example, I ask my clients, I say, look, when you last went for a flight, right, from Auckland to Christchurch or internationally, what do you think the most difficult part of the flight is? Or the most sort of the one where you're a bit uncomfortable? And it's always 80% of people say it's the landing, right? Because you're coming in and the ground's sort of approaching you, and there's a bit of buffeting going on. But the fact is that the takeoff is the most critical part of a flight, because you're overcoming gravity, you're overcoming friction. You've got full load, you've got full passengers and freight on board and fuel. You've got to overcome that and put maximum thrust. So that's where the maximum pressure is on the aircraft. And the pilot absolutely has to be spot on, focused, and understand all these vulnerabilities. Similarly, if you translate that into financial planning, the first part of your introduction into your financial plan it's a lot of flurry of activity, right? You need to review your circumstances. You need to know what your gaps are, where your opportunities are. So this is what we do. We sit with our clients and we really thrash out, where they want to go, what they think their risk appetites are. There's a lot of work done in the first sort of 6 weeks, and then once you reach cruising altitude, then you can take your seatbelts off. You can order a drink. You can watch a movie, right? So just getting off into the direction of your goals, that's very important. And our process, we go to people's homes, we have consultations with them, or through Zoom, and we have that sort of very engaged process which helps them lift up. Otherwise, if you're left to your own devices, your life takes over, and there's so much information out there, you get overwhelmed, and it's known as cognitive dissonance. So you just don't take any action. You become numb. And so our job is to create that awareness, get people excited about their own futures, and then help them sort of with that early ascent up the mountain that they need to climb.
What were the other 2 points?
The other 2 points, so one is very simple. You know how a lot of families have kids, and they're always worried about their kids, and they're saying, we have to pay for their university, or we have to, make sure that they're sorted in life financially. That's a noble thought. But the fact of the matter is, the most important thing is to have your own financial foundation as a couple, as the parents, right? Kids will sort themselves out, and they learn through what you're doing. So this relates to when in an airplane, the cabin decompresses, then you're advised to put your oxygen mask on yourself before you try and help your kids, right? Because a mother's instinct, for example, is to immediately, if the sign comes on and the cabin starts decompressing, they'll run to their kids and say, put this oxygen on. But the fact of the matter is, if they lack oxygen, they'll fall down, they'll faint, and they won't be able to help anyone. So in financial planning terms is, you've got to, as a mother and father, as a couple, first look after yourself, right? Before you can look after your kids, your whānau, your community. You're no good to anyone if you're in financial stress yourself.
I feel like that's going to be quite a aha moment for some people who will be listening to this.
Yes, and it is always. And then the third principle that's important and relevant to financial planning. So on a long flight, let's say from here to LA, any small deviation in your flight path at the start of the journey, or even during transit, it means you'll have a massive deviation in your destination. Hundreds of miles, you'll be off target. So when there's a deviation in your flight path, you need to correct it immediately. So you do course corrections. So in financial planning, what that means is you can't just set a plan and forget about it, right? And so get excited, okay, now we've got a plan, we're heading there. There might be crosswinds which are blowing you off. You might get into your bad habits again. So this is where we offer sort of continuous interaction, and we do reviews every year because circumstances change externally, internally, and we just want to help our clients keep on the course towards their destination. Because life takes you away, right? Things happen, and you get distracted. So it's very important for you to know what your plan is, what your goals are, and just try and keep adjusting, making adjustments towards it. And this financial planning process. So those three, aviation fundamentals really are applied there. And then, of course, I've got other experiences which I can tap into, depending on the client.
I mean, I've never looked at it that way before.
Well, there you go. And I've got some clients who are pilots, and they immediately get it, and it just resonates with them. So it's all about really. My approach to clients is it's not necessarily what I'm talking, what are the things I'm saying, which is all important information. It's not what I say, it's how I make them feel. So 80% of the clients whom I go and see, in the beginning they're anxious, they're overwhelmed, they're uncertain, right? There's a bit of ambiguity, they're not quite sure. And my job is to leave them feeling empowered, enabled, and confident, right? If they do that, then I know that they will absolutely seek out the right kind of advice, the right kind of paradigms and tools to help them get to their goals.
I often think about what is our relationship with money. Do you talk about that with your clients? Yes.
So again, it comes back to the mindset. And again, I don't want to diss the baby boomer generation, because I'm a baby boomer myself. But there was this sort of Victorian or even you can call it religious belief that money doesn't grow on trees, or money is the root of all evil, or if somebody is wealthy, they must be dodgy, they must have done something wrong. So this is a negative way.
Is it just mindsets, like the way that people believe about? Do we believe about money because we've grown up with people who believed about it, or we've seen it? Like, how does this mindset develop about money and wealth?
So if you've read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, so his poor dad had this mindset of, that you got to work 9 to 5 and just be a good worker, and that should be good enough for the whole life, right? And he had this approach. And look, my father was also from a working class background, but he rose through the ranks through the dint of his hard work, through the fact that he was he got all his qualifications, he kept his studies up throughout his life, and from middle class really he rose to the top. He was the chairman of a steel mill, the largest steel mill in South Asia, right? But it was that hard work translates to becoming wealthy, right? There's no other way. And then again, that relationship with money, he'd go switching all the lights off in the house, saying, I don't work for the electricity company, money doesn't grow on trees. And when it's drilled down to you, you start having this very insecure relationship with money.
Is it scarcity? Like scarcity or scarcity? I don't know how you say it.
Yes.
Scarcity as in money doesn't grow on trees. What is that belief actually means in real terms?
It really it means that you're not worthy of being wealthy, right? And nowadays with social media and you see all these influencers, millionaires, that's a wrong it's a wrong notion, right? There's only like 0.5% of all of these social influencers are like that. But then everybody starts comparing themselves to it. But the money relationship that the parents, and this is why I say, get your fundamentals right, have a plan, then your children will look at you and learn from you. Rather, learning from doing rather than saying. So again, if you're hard up and your child says, hey, why don't I have at school, my friends are coming with these lunch boxes, fancy lunch boxes, why do we don't have it? And if one of the parents says money doesn't grow on trees, then, you think, okay, there's something, that we can't do.
So I think parents should stop doing this.
Absolutely, but they'll only stop doing it if they believe it themselves. So this is what I'm saying. So the relationship with money is you do have the power, right? You do have if you're earning money, you can save money. If you can save money, you can invest money. If you can invest money, you can grow wealth. It's not rocket science. So everyone has the opportunity to save and to grow their money. So money, and as a matter of fact, we say that create your money tree. So you start by planting a sapling, right? And you nurture it, you protect it and then it grows into a fruit-bearing tree in 10 years. And that's passive income. So money does grow on trees. You reverse that psychology.
There we go. That's a little bang.
Yep.
Microphone drop for all of us. Why do the 15% of Kiwis who are financially independent are secure? Like, what are they doing differently?
Oh, yeah. So that's a very good question. And by the way, so it's for that reason, I also interview and do consultations with people who are, we do the numbers for them, and they are killing it, right? They're hitting it out of the park. They are going to retire. If they want to retire, they can retire yesterday because they've got enough assets, they've got enough income. But they're still working because they're still young and they enjoy it. So there's a couple of things that they do differently. And I'll just I want to make sure that this is very important. So the first thing is they have a target and a goal. They have an awareness to start with, right? They have an awareness, and this is through somebody in their family, right, who has been well and successful, right? Or they've had a friend who's influenced them. There is some external source of inspiration for them, right? I always find out who that is. It's not, they just didn't stumble into it. So that's one thing. So there's a bit of an awareness. Then they're quite articulate about their plans and goals. They know what they want, they can visualize it, and they have a plan to achieve it. So if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a plan, then you're just, there's a saying, if you don't know where you're going, then you'll get there anyway. You'll get to where you don't know where you're going. So there's uncertainty. So you've got to have a plan, you've got to have your goal, and like I said, maybe some parents have taught children to do jobs early, and when they earn from it, like a paper route, save part of that, right? And that saving then becomes a habit. And when they grow up, they're already disciplined. They already have the behavior of saving. So there's these fundamental things that have impacted their lives or have intervened in their lives, right? And then they've taken that. Then the key thing is they invariably, anybody who's achieved sustainable wealth, financial security, they have got a kitchen cabinet. They have got a team of trusted advisors. And I'm not talking about the mega rich, right? And this is what we do, because our clients are not necessarily mega rich to start with, but they have, for example, a mortgage advisor, a financial advisor, an accountant, a solicitor. They can tap into their expertise to make informed decisions about their wealth. A lot of people say, oh, I can't afford it. Only the rich can afford it. But you can't afford not to have access to trusted advisors. To give you an analogy in sports, so Tiger Woods, at the height of his game, nobody could get anywhere near him. He had 10 different coaches and advisors for nutrition, for mindset, for short game, for longer game. Right now, none of those advisors could win a round against Tiger Woods. He was the best. But Tiger Woods could not become the best in the world without the input of those specialist team. So having a team helping you with your goals, taking you outside your comfort zone, giving you security and information analysis so you can tap into that, that's one of the key drivers for success.
Naveed, why don't you tell me a bit about what is your conversation like with your clients? Maybe like a recent conversation that you've had with somebody, and how did you get them from A to B?
Well, to answer that question properly, you just have to recognize and acknowledge that there are different phases of life based on your age, right? So the conversations are different for different segments related to the age, and there's a reason for that. Is when you're younger, so the younger clients that we have, you can take more risk, right? And you've got a longer time to build your wealth, and obviously you don't have enough so many assets by then. You might not even have your first home. Your earning capacity is not quite there. You might be planning a family, so it's a different sort of a conversation, right? It's not a one size fits all. The underlying thing, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is we want to help our clients get onto a pathway which leads to their goals. It doesn't matter what age they are, right? It's just that the goals vary based on your position. So anyway, let's just look at a current client I'm working with. As a matter of fact, I'll probably have to go and see them after this podcast. So they are, the husband is 52, the wife is 48. They're originally from South Africa. So what that means is, so South Africans, expats, are a bit more financially literate. They apparently in their school system or in their the job, the career process, they've learned the importance of financial planning a bit more than what we have in New Zealand. So they're a bit more proactive. So it's a different conversation with them. However, the husband is 52, so he's got 13 more years to reach that retirement. So again, so we're looking at that timeline and saying, where are you now, right? And he's a bit nervous about sort of disrupting his current lifestyle for a future, because his wife likes to travel, and she says, look, we don't want to change our current lifestyle too much for the future. Whereas he's saying, well, look, I only have 13 more years, so I need to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. So again, my discussions with him, and it's a very iterative process. It's not just I meet them once and that's it and everything's solved. Remember I mentioned takeoff is the most important part of the flight. So we are in that pre-takeoff mode right now. So we're making sure everything is aligned. We know what the weather is en route. We know where they are and what their goal is. And so we're doing a lot of preparation. So almost every day we exchange either a phone call, a Zoom call, or a phone call or an email, right? So the nature of conversations, it's really, it changes from client to client. Younger people are a bit more gung-ho. They say, we don't want to be like our parents, for example, shuffling around, saving pennies for a rainy day. They want to do side hustles. They want to conquer the world, right? So I'm not going to pour water on their dreams, right? I'm just going to say, yep, well, let's help you get to your plans and how you do that. So it depends on what background you come from, which part of the world you are. We've got a lot of potential clients from South Asia. Then you've got sort of the East Asian countries. They're a lot more gung-ho. They're a bit more proactive. Kiwis are conservative by nature. And they, generally speaking, don't like to talk about money. This is actually a problem, because if you want to become a master at anything, you've got to talk about it to start with. It's almost like a taboo. And even between couples, they're not talking about their finances. And things might be worsening, and they're just going ahead, putting on a brave face. So we've got to open that up and open that discussion and bring it out on the open and say, hey guys, you've been married for 10 years now. You got 3 kids, and now let's help you start looking after yourselves. You work for 40 years for an employer, right? You pay your taxes regularly, you raise your kids, you volunteer, and then at the end of it all, you've got a bleak future. So that's just not right. We've got to do something about it.
So, and what you were saying is, throughout your multicultural experience, Kiwis have been the most, I would say, unopen about conversations to do with money?
No, they haven't. When I see them, there's this she'll be right approach too, right? And obviously I have to say, no, she will not be right if you don't do something about it, right? You can't just leave things to chance.
So what's the attitude that you see Kiwis make almost every single time you have an interaction, like people from, New Zealand?
Well, I mean, again, if you're born and bred here, you went to school here, and your parents are from here, then you have those entrenched characteristics, right, about money and things like that. And like I said, it is conservative, because the Financial Markets Authority, which actually regulates the whole financial advice piece, only came into being in 2011. Before that, there wasn't even that. There weren't even advisors. So it's not through any fault of theirs, but it was, and also another thing, we are lucky, we are fortunate as Kiwis that we haven't really had any major, there's been wars, or there's not been a sort of, apart from sort of earthquakes and things like that, we've had a pretty cushy ride, or at least the generations before. So you become a bit complacent. So there's a bit of complacency, there's a bit of conservatism, there's a bit of apathy. So my job is to point that out and say, hey, look, it is what it is, but there's no reason why you can't change this approach and change the course of where you're heading, right? And that comes to that pilot analogy of change the course of your flight path towards where you want to go. But for that, the client, the people I'm meeting, they have to be articulated about their goals. So when I ask them, what are your goals? Most people just sort of shrug their shoulders and say, well, we haven't thought about this. And that's the first thing I say. I said, look, you two need to get together and over a glass of wine or whatever, just dream again. What would you be like to be doing in the next 10 years, right? And then we can put a figure on it, and we can aim for it, and we can start a plan to achieve it. That's what financial planning is.
And what's stopping people from doing that?
It's just that there are, especially in Auckland, because we're in Auckland, most of our clients are from Auckland. We are so overwhelmed by the demands of work, dropping our kids to school, preparing lunches, school sports on weekends. There's not time to even think about this. Forget about having a plan and then executing it.
So what you're saying is that people are not making it a priority.
They're not aware that it needs to be a priority to begin with. So you've got to...
So they're not aware.
First of all, they're not aware. Create the awareness. Then to make it a priority on an ongoing basis, you have to change your behavior, right? And there's a saying that if you do the same thing for 21 days, then you can create a new behavior. So it's not just about doing that once. It's about having a plan and saying, I need to do this differently, right? I need to be saving X amount of, if I've got a surplus of $1,000 every month and I'm spending half of it on, flat screen TV and trips and coffees and things, that maybe needs to be changed. Can you do with 1 coffee a day instead of 2?
Well, there's a whole nother conversation now when it comes to almost like having a review. I recently started having a money detox. And I was watching a a presentation by someone who in finance, and they were talking about money and how money, what's your relationship with money and how you think about it and how you're going to save and whether budgets work or not. And they also talked about how budgets don't really work for everybody and wanted to go via a path. It's how to make more money. How do you manage your money? That is the issue that we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, with money and wealth, the options are, if you don't have enough money to save, which I always challenge, because frankly, you can always find money to save, right? But let's say you don't. So then it's a question of you need to get more money, right? So you need to improve your skill sets, your qualifications, side hustle, call it what you may. If that's stopping you to build wealth and become financially independent, then are you not motivated to do something about it? Are you just going to say, well, that's life? And that's that apathy I'm talking about.
Is that what you see when you come across people who are not prepared?
Well, there's that sort of, like I said, that apathy or that discomfort, right? But the fact of the matter is, Scott Galloway, he's a financial guru too, whom I follow a lot. He says, unless you take a few uncomfortable risks, nothing wonderful will appear. So you've got to be uncomfortable about certain things. The trouble is, if you're in your comfort zone, you say, well, hey, look, I this is the way I am. I come home, I go in front of the TV and I sip my coffee or whatever, and that's the way I am. I can't change. Well, then the thing is, where's that taking you? So my job is to say, yep, okay, I acknowledge that. This is the way you are. This is where it's taking you. Now, if you do 1, 2, and 3, then this is what happens for your outcome in 5 years, 10 years. So I show them what they can do by small changes, right? I'm not talking about drastic changes necessarily. And there's a gap. There's a gap between the outcome of status quo and making those changes. If they're excited about that change and there's some emotion into it, then they will change. That's my job. So I have to make sure, again, make them feel confident, enabled, and empowered about their potential to change the course of their life. And it doesn't matter where you start, right? It doesn't matter what bad shape you're in. You can always improve it. You can always create a foundation. For some people, it might take 2 or 3 years because they've got bad debt, they've got bad behavior, bad habits. Well, okay, let's have a program. Let's get your fundamentals into place, and then we've got a foundation to launch from. It's 2 years down the road.
How do you get rich?
Okay, so this is a very good question, right? Because the context of being rich, it changes. Everybody's got a different approach. So we help people sort of quantify it. What does it mean becoming rich, right? So for some, it's a mansion, cars, nice suits, the Hollywood lifestyle, right? But for others, it's and for most actually, it's having the time to do things that you love doing, right?
Okay, and how about, is rich the same as wealthy?
Probably not, right? But again, it's what's
the difference?
So wealthy is, they say health is wealth, for example. So if I'm healthy for my age, so I'm wealthy, right? That's a metric of being wealthy, is having good health.
It's not necessarily, wealth is not necessarily money.
Well, not necessarily money. However, it's what do you want to do with any money that you believe you can afford or you can create? It's not the money number to start with. So we ask this. We have a very robust goal setting process, which we do with our clients. And, again, we start with, let's say there's this gentleman, this couple that I'm working with, so 52 and 48. So I say to them, at 65, how much money do you need to be earning to have a good lifestyle, right? So you've paid your mortgage, the kids are grown up, they're married, they're not reliant on you anymore. How much money do you need to live a good life, right? So they said, well, we haven't thought about it. I said, well, let's think about it. That's why I'm here. So then they start listing things that they need to do, right? So somebody might say, hey, I always wanted to learn the Zumba and I wanted to go to Machu Picchu, right? Or I wanted to do this. So, okay, so what do you think that'll cost on an annual basis, right? So for some it's, we'll just scrape, we can buy a caravan and we can just go and, in and around New Zealand, and we just need about $50,000 to live our life well. Fine, right? Others, it's, we'd like to see the world. We've got grandkids, we've got family in other countries, we'd like to go there. We'd like to volunteer more of our time, we'd like to travel more. So then it's a different yardstick for them. So again, our job is to help them articulate what works for them. We're not going to say that it's a hard rule that no, you must be earning $100,000 or not. But we're saying, what do you think you need, right? And then how can we get you there? And look, sometimes it's unrealistic, right?
I was just about to say, what if someone says, I want to have a mansion by the lake and want to have a party that I host celebrities every single weekend. That's going to cost me $100,000 per month.
Yep.
Then you're like, I can't really get you that.
No, it's not that. It's not that. It's good to have those aspirations. They're stretch, right? So there's a pathway to that, right? There's still, believe it or not. So that's more to do with the business side of things, right? It's creating this being an influencer and having a fan base which pays for you, right? So this is slightly different. I'm talking about most of our people are jobs. They've got jobs and incomes, right? Or they're self-employed. We've got some business owners as well, but again, it's still, they've got a finite income. So we're really talking about what can you do with your current finite income and start investing and saving so that in 10 years, you've got something that you can fall back on. If it's some young person who's got dreams to become a multimillionaire, then it's a different kind of a conversation, right? Because we're not at this point, although I do wear a hat of a business consultant and coach separately from my financial planning business. It's about how can we create a business and a brand more that creates wealth through the business. So there's a different conversation entirely. And that's, by the way, we're very clear about this. You have to have a firewall between your personal wealth and your personal financial goals and any business aspirations. Well, I've got a client who's a GP. He earns good money right now, and his wife's actually a nurse. And we've helped them get their first investment property. So he said to me, he called me up and said, hey, Naveed, I want to buy a GP practice, right? It's about $1 million. And I believe I'll be able to pay that back in about a year and a half. I've done the numbers. So I said, well, that sounds pretty good, right? You're getting a return on your investment in a year and a half. I said, that's kind of, it's almost, impossible, but, but we'll have to have a look at it in a different light. But please don't mix that with your personal financial, your family, right? Your estate planning, your kids, you and your wife, what you're doing. That's because businesses got different set of risks, and you've got different set of risk mitigation you need to do. So we kind of like to separate those two. And if they're mixed, it's actually it creates vulnerability. So if you don't have your separate business and it's kind of mixed with your home.
How do you separate them?
Look, I'm not a lawyer, right? But I do know that there's a couple of things. The ownership structures for your properties and your personal assets are different, either through trusts or through individuals, right? Your business needs to be a business entity. And for example, we even recommend that your lending for your business is from a separate bank versus your home mortgage and your investment property mortgage. So there are a number of things you can do to separate the two. We don't have many clients who have that kind of arrangement, but where there is, we immediately say, look, you need to be talking to a solicitor, you need to be talking to an accountant, and you need to have a complete, clear demarcation, because your family assets is the priority. You want to protect your family assets first. Business can go down, right? And then what happens? You don't want to jeopardize your family well-being because of your business venture.
How do you look at money?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, for most part of my life, it was I work hard, I'll get the qualification, I make good money, and I was right. I was making very good money for an immigrant here in New Zealand. But what I was doing with that was not very smart. So the first part was very good. I was able to earn a good income, and I was able to look after my family and contribute. But I wasn't doing much with it, right? I wasn't saving enough, perhaps. I wasn't investing enough. I wasn't aware of a pathway I needed to be on. So it was just kind of, there was a lot of leakage. There was a lot of missed opportunities, right? And I was really, when I was made redundant, right, 10 years ago, I was kind of almost at a loss of what to do. I was bitter and twisted, but it was a moment of awakening that I said, look, I've really, that job that I was talking about, I really over-delivered on everything, right? And one day I'll talk about that separately. But to be made redundant, and then, in my 50s, it was very difficult to get a job because there's a bit of ageism in recruitment. So that's got its own challenges. So I never want anyone to be that vulnerable, right? Where they've worked, they've been honest about it, they've been sincere to their employers, and they still don't have job security. And then they're cut off from their means, and there's no plan B, right? And good, hardworking people, salt of the earth, right? It's happening to them, and it's not fair. But again, it's relying on the government or handouts or your family or anything else, any external factor. I didn't have a family here, right? And my parents were too old anyway when that happened. So I had to fend for myself. And I learned that I need to be clear about my own financial well-being, and I need to be independent of all these means of income. And I am now.
So if you would pick 3 words, what you thought about money then and what you think about money now, what would they be?
The first thing is there's an abundance, right? God, the universe, has created an abundance. Let's look at the galaxies, right? Look at the ever-expanding cosmos. There's an abundance. So this scarcity mindset, that there's a scarcity, is only a mindset, right? So the first thing is, if you understand that, then your mind opens to possibilities, right? And there's another thing that we do with goal setting. Have you heard of a term, reticular activation system? Okay. So it's
No, I haven't, sorry.
It's having a vision and putting some emotion behind it helps you manifest that vision, right? Now this is a bit of a woo-woo, right? But it works in all walks of life, especially in financial planning. So what that means is that there is opportunity, right? So even if you just look at a person who's struggling with their finances and all that, and once we lift up the cover and we look at the gaps and the opportunities, we always find means and ways to improve it. So that's opportunity, isn't it? Right? So you're saying, oh no, it's woe is me, and nothing's working. OCR has gone up, interest rates have gone up, job cuts are happening. There's wars in all parts of the world, and you're focusing on the wrong thing. You can't control that, unfortunately, right?
So if people who've been, I know like a lot of people who are in my, not my dad's age, but like older people tend to watch the news more often, and they're always like clicking at the news and sharing what's happened and the OCR and the official cash rates and the inflation has gone down, but it's gone up again. And I used to do that a little bit before, and not anymore. I'd rather invest my time into something more positive, because at the end of the day, there's the ups and downs of the market, and people will have moments where they will have less money to spend on their food because the inflation is really high, but then other times they have more money to spend on their food. So they need to know how to weather the storms. But for people who are concentrating on the news, like obsessed about the news, is that a good thing?
Well, again, that's a behavior thing, and that's a mindset pattern too. So again, coming back to the reticular activation system. So if that's what you're focusing on, that's what you're going to get, right? So you basically, that's what happens. And this is what our process helps with too, is what can you control, right? Can you control the war in Ukraine? I don't think so, right? Can you control the OCR? To a certain extent you can, right? By spending less, right? Less retail therapy, and that's what's happening now. So less people are spending on discretionary spend in the retail, and inflation has come down. It's come to 3.3 now from 4 and 5. So now the OCR will hopefully change, right? But again, you can make a song and dance about it. You can get all anxious about it and overwhelmed about it. And that then prevents you from taking things that you can do, right? You can just look at your spending patterns, for example, and say, hey, do we really need this, right? Do we need to pay for the newspaper, really? Because we get news from all sources online. Why are we paying for the newspaper still, right? For example. Or, I mean, we help clients with that too. And we work with a lady called the Money Mentalist. She helps with money behavior as well. So there's always things you can do to improve. And this is the thing. So it's a little incremental things that you look at, which then helps you get that momentum towards something good. So wouldn't you feel better having a little win every day rather than hearing this dreadful news day in and day out, and then sharing it, which is, contaminating other people's minds. So, and there's a lot of that, unfortunately, and I feel really bad for our youth, because they were brought up on social media, and there's just, so you've got to be very selective about who you meet. That circle of your influence. You are the sort of mean of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So what are they saying? What are their behaviors? Look, surround yourself with people and friends and influencers who give you a leg up and give you a positive outlook, right? And so again, it comes back to the mindset.
Can you tell me about the people that you've helped? Give me like an example, like 3 people, like who they are, how they've helped them, how have you helped them, where they were, and how they got to be helped by you, and what did you do to be able to really get them far into their financial journey?
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, first of all, I must say that, so I personally have done over 1,300 consultations, right? So there's a lot of people to draw from, these inspirational stories and these really good examples. So I'll just give you 3 examples based on their age, because like I said, there's a different conversation and a different process for our clients or for people who are at different points in their lives. So we start with our youngest client, right? And it's a great story because it's this year. And normally we only work with people who are in their 30s or 40s, right? Because they're further along their life, they've got some assets, and maybe they've settled on their jobs and things like that. So this is a young couple, 27-year-old, and the husband is originally from South Africa. He's a builder in Waiuku in Auckland, South Auckland. And his wife is a veterinary assistant who works there. And they're just, a lovely, lovely young couple. And they got in touch with us, and I went to see them. And I said, hey, look, great to see you guys. And it's good to see young people also being excited about creating a future, a financial future, because I don't really see a lot of young people. And I said, well, so what's the reason? Why do you want to sort of get onto this journey? And he was quite candid, and he said, look, my parents came from South Africa, and they took a while for them to integrate here and get jobs and all that. And now they're not well established, and they still have to work hard. And my grandparents are here too, and they're working too, and they're well into their 60s. So I don't want that to happen, because now I've grown up here. He went to school in Pukekohe. I want to really be proactive, and I want to be financially sorted by the time I'm 50, right? And I said, well, the good news is that you can do that, because we need about 10, 12, 15 years to create sustainable wealth. So anyway, we did a full financial plan for him through one of our advisors. We went back to him and presented the plan. And one of the recommendations was to be able to buy an investment property, which we helped him do. So now he's the proud owner of an investment property at age 27. And he is so chuffed with it because that is going to really help him turbo boost his flight path towards his goals. And he's really on track for becoming financially independent.
Thank you. That was a lovely example of that. If someone is listening, watching now, a 27-year-old doesn't have a financial plan necessarily, they don't have a financial planner or advisor, and they come, they're wondering, how can I do an investment property? What would you say?
Well, there's two. Young people are largely DIYers, right? Because they like to experiment, and that's perfectly fine. We don't do DIYers. We don't work with DIYers.
What do you mean DIYers?
So there are a lot of companies which offer courses how to learn to buy and flip property, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like a business. So you find a house which is and you pay lower than the value, right? Because it's a distressed house, for example. You upgrade it, and then you sell it for more, make a profit, $100,000, right, let's say, and then you keep on doing that. Now, that is a business. That's a different thing, right? That's not, it's a full-time thing almost. So long as, if it's a young couple or a single person who's working and his main primary source of income is his job, then yes, we can help them. Right, we can help them create a plan. But if it's a younger person who wants to do side hustle and DIY, that's very speculative, and we do kind of conservative financial plans. As I mentioned earlier, it's grow rich slowly, 12 years, 15 years. So it's incremental growth over time. It's creating that parallel world of wealth while you work. It's not a separate thing. So for the other, if they're as well set in life as the example I gave you, then by all means they can get in touch with us, and we can have a conversation with them and see what we can do for them. But there's always an opportunity to do something.
I almost want to say, like, everybody who goes through university and gets a job needs to immediately hire a financial planner or advisor, and for the next 10, 15 years, in their early 20s all the way to their mid-30s, they are steered correctly towards that path. But unfortunately, in, like, for example, my case, that never was the case. Like, there was no that there was no sense of, like, you've got to go and get a financial advisor. Like, my parents knew what they knew and they were doing really good.
Yep.
But there wasn't that awareness, like, about, hey, well, you need to have a financial advisor to come. I mean, I was, lucky enough to have financially aware and, clear environment around me. That's my parents, my brother, and, other friends who are very careful about their money. But not everyone is the same. How can we shift that for young people, do you think?
Well, it's really just, again, creating these, for me, and I haven't done this, and this is one thing that I need to do, is to reach out, because look, young people are on social media more. Right? I'm old school. I'm from the baby boomer generation, yeah. And I haven't reached that cohort of younger people. Mm-hmm. That was just by chance that I came across these young people at 27. Otherwise, nobody's going to be. And there's a sort of an image of a financial advisor or planner. It's very staid. It's very sort of boring, right? Like an accountant or a lawyer or something. Young people they want to be excited. They want to be moved by it.
They want to be in control.
Yes, they want to be in control. So you've got to have a different kind of a brand message for them. I think there will be, like I said, this financial advice only came to New Zealand in 2011. But now the younger population, they're going into jobs and into sort of, their 30s. There's now more of a need for financial advisors and coaches and consultants, which is what I am, to be offering this to them, because all they need is that framework, and then they'll embrace it. They're more amenable to change. The older you are, you get set in your ways, which brings me to my second story about a client. So we talked about a 27-year-old, and the reason they are getting into it is because they don't want to be like their grandparents, right? So about 6 years ago, I got a call from a lady she's a CEO of a health and safety company, right? I can't mention her name. And she'd heard about us through one of our clients. And she said, look, could you come and see me? I need a plan and I need to do some investments. So I said, yeah, absolutely, sure, I'll come and see you. So she's 60-year-old, right? And when I did my consultation with her, so I said, look, for us to create a plan, it's usually a 10-year plan, right? And you might need that. You might need 10 years because we did a analysis of her current situation, and she was unable to retire at 65 with what she had. So she would need to work beyond 65. So I said, look, how long would you be willing to work to support your financial plan? And what she said to me kind of was great. She said, look, I just come from 3 days ago, I went to see a Cher concert. Now, Cher is 70-something, and she was dancing and singing for 3 hours. So there's no reason why I can't work well into my 70s, because I'm very good at what I do. I enjoy it, yeah. And I'll work till I'm 70. And I'm fit, I keep myself. And I said, wow, what a good attitude, right? A lot of 60-year-olds are kind of plodding around thinking, oh, God, what are we going to do for retirement? And here's this lady, and she didn't look 60. She really looked in her 40s. And she was inspired by Cher and the fact that she had to work till 70. We don't want our clients necessarily to have to work till they're 70, but it's good to be financially independent and you still choose to work, right? That's perfectly fine. So that's the two spectrums that we have. One is young, before they're 30 and then in their 60s. Most of our clients are in their 40s and 50s. So I just want to give you one more example of that ideal client. So we had, I was made contact with two teachers, and this was just before COVID, a year before COVID, I think, or maybe 2 years before COVID. And the salaries were pretty nominal. They hadn't got the increase that they got recently, so they weren't making great amounts of money, and it's quite a stressful role, right? They had two children, but they were both. One was 19, one was 22, so they were deemed independent. So their income was kind of just nominal, but they wanted to create a plan. And when I went to see them, the wife disclosed that she just received an inheritance of $500,000 from her uncle's estate. So she said, I want to buy a property with this. Right? That's why I've called you. So I said, well, that's great. But I said, but hang on, but we're going to look at your holistically, right? By all means, we can help you leverage your position to buy an investment property or properties towards your goals. But I'd like to have a full plan done before you make that decision, so we can give you informed decisions about what you do. So we were able to do a full financial plan for them. And the plan recommendations, it optimized their position. So what we did with the $500,000, they were just rushing off to buy property. Our financial advisor said, no, pay down your mortgage because that's bad debt. There was about $300,000 left on that. So they paid down their debt. They were mortgage-free home. So suddenly their equity went up. They were able to leverage their equity, and we got them 3 investment properties in a medium density section in Christchurch, right? And they had about $100,000 in fixed term deposits for short term contingencies. So not only did they get 3 properties, not 1 or 2, they paid down their debt, plus they had a buffer. And their properties actually over the 3 or 4 years since have given them a capital gain of $250,000. They've gone to Australia, by the way, and they say, look, I wish, more people had access to what you have provided us. And they're on our website. It's one of our testimonials.
That's like a great story, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's an amazing way to have your life change. And there's a possibility, there is hope when it comes to financial, independence and financial freedom. And this is one of the ways that you, as a financial advisor, can offer the help and support, because
just a disclaimer, so I'm not a financial advisor, right?
Yeah.
But our company or our team, this is the kitchen cabinet I talk about. We've got investment financial advisors, mortgage financial advisors, KiwiSaver, insurance, all of them, right? So it's whatever part, it's like if you go for a warrant of fitness for your car, right? And you only need a spark plug to be changed, right? So you're not going to have the whole, engine overhaul just because your spark plug's not working. So we bring in the right type of expertise depending on your situation and your goals and what you want. So it's all bespoke and it's personalized to the needs of our clients. But we've got the team. They're ready, right? Solicitors, accountants, advisors.
it's like a one-stop shop.
Correct. And as a matter of fact, we bring it to their homes. So, clients are busy. They've got, commuting in Auckland, getting back late. So I go and see some clients at 8 o'clock when they put the kids to bed. I go and see them. We have an hour and a half consultation, and that becomes the basis of everything that they do from that point onwards.
How long does it take to really reach a goal or accomplish something with a financial advisor?
So like I said to you, I've said this a couple of times, it's a get-rich-slow process, right? Yes, there are some early low-hanging fruit wins that you can make, right? For example, you can reduce your mortgage, right? You can consolidate your bad debts if you've got credit cards and Q cards and things like that, and it's all getting out of control, we can have it consolidated into one, and you can manage it better. So things like that can happen quicker, within a month or two, right? So a lot of our clients have KiwiSaver in the wrong plan, right? They're young and they've got a conservative KiwiSaver.
Can we talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
What should my KiwiSaver be put in?
Okay, so I can't. You can never give advice. Even if I'm an advisor, I can't give advice like that, right? We have to know your full financials.
Okay,
but
so
in general terms,
if I'm going to say I am 30-something, working somewhere full time,
we'll do an assessment. We'll do a full assessment for you, right? And then, generally speaking, we look at your risk profile too, right? So if your risk appetite, the younger you are, you should have more risk appetite because you've got more time, right? You can do things and fail quickly and then get back up again. So generally speaking, please don't construe this as advice. It's not. Generally speaking, the younger you are, the more growth assets you need, because you need to grow your net investment assets to a point where you become financially independent. So if you've got 10, 20 years, which you do, you should be aggressive, right? You should be growth oriented. So looking at growth oriented assets. This is, again, it's just...
I actually do have my KiwiSaver on growth.
Brilliant. And, the provider has to be good. Somebody who's proactive is constantly looking to adjust it and provides you with good service and good reports. That's another thing. Some clients already are with good providers. They're in the right thing. Obviously, we're not going to do anything. We don't have to touch that. But a lot of Kiwis, I think there's $40 billion of KiwiSaver funds in what are called default schemes. That's just a default scheme. There's no thought gone into it. And so that's a lot of assets which are just lying kind of unintentional. And this is where the intention comes in. So we say, no, let's have a look at it. Let's see what you can do. We want to help each and every dollar that's coming into your life as an income or an asset to go out to work for you 24/7, right? You go to sleep, it's working for you. Right now with the job, you are working for money. We want to turn that around so your money is working for you. And we've got 15 years to do that, and we can help you do that. That's how you get financial independence.
I suppose having a joint financial plan unites partners, husbands and wives, and the like. And the reverse too. Yeah. By the way,
so yes, this is a very very important question and a very good subject too. As I think I mentioned earlier in the podcast, money or wealth is almost as important as health, right? It is a cause of great anxiety, conflict, and even rifts in a family, in couples, and parents. So it's something that needs to be talked about in the open. And when I see couples, it's almost sometimes like a couples counseling session, right? Although I'm not a qualified counselor, but literally they're asking me a question that, oh, shouldn't she be doing that? See, I told you. But I always say, look, I'm not a counselor, but let's get a shared platform, right? And what that practically looks like is a Venn diagram. So we're two individuals, right? We've got our own likes and dislikes in life, but then we've got this common overlapping arena where we've got shared vision and the children, right? We've got hopefully a shared way of bringing them up, right? How to discipline them, how to educate them, etc. So similarly, the financial planning process gives the opportunity to couples because it's not discussed. People, it's a taboo thing almost with couples. They literally don't even know how much are you earning, or they've got separate accounts sometimes.
Really, is that the case?
Yes, it is.
Really? They don't share?
Well,
What do you see on on the ground?
it again depends. Some people are very open. They have got shared accounts and they're on board. And those, by the way, those couples are the most likely to achieve their goals. And they do. They've got because they're clear about what they want.
So is it better to have a shared account between couples?
No. Again, it's horses for horses, right? So, but it again.
But should you have a shared account with your spouse?
It depends on your circumstances. You could say for these expenses, which are the family thing, we have a shared account, right? But again, we have to assess each person's profile, their money profile, before we can actually give them any instruction on that or guidance. But generally what I'm saying is, just by the mere fact that we've got a couple sitting down talking about their finances together, that is the beginning of that process. So it may have been disparate, fragmented, but because they're now getting together to talk about this, and I've got a client, by the way, I'm working with right now, they don't even live together, but they've come together for their financial plan. That's how important it is for them. Because why wouldn't you?
So does financial planning as a couple bring couples together, unites them better? It's a better relationship. It's a better health.
It
healthy
fosters
relationship.
it fosters commonality. It fosters dialogue, right? And it creates openness and transparency, which would normally nurture the relationship, right? Rather than being distrustful or not knowing, or sometimes undermining, right? And unknowingly, sometimes we're doing something different. We're sabotaging something because we're not really sure what the other person is doing, right? There was a South African couple, and the husband kind of declared that he spends about $6,000 on entertaining his friends, and the wife was aghast when she heard that, and she said, "What?" And I was a bit worried that I'd opened a can of worms. But then it was all settled, and he said, "Yeah, look, I think I need to bring that down." And because they were giving 10% of their gross income to the church anyway, and then 6,000 on alcohol, that wasn't a good look. So they did kind of clean their act up a bit, and they're clients now. So it's things like that. So I wouldn't say I don't have a special program for couples. All I say is that by bringing them together and discussing it openly, it would naturally bring them together, and at least they're on one page for finances.
What about if someone is listening and going, well, I don't work for somebody, I'm a self-employed, I'm an entrepreneur, and I do side hustles, and I create my own wealth and finance, and I don't have anything regular, but I am doing X, Y, Z, and haven't got assets. Maybe because they don't want to, maybe because they, find it difficult, whatever the reason is. What sort of financial advice would you have for those kind of people?
Yeah, well, a lot of people who are like that, they've got a lot of spinning plates, right? And it's all about, again, taking stock of everything, right? What are your sources of income, right? How secure are they? What is your state of your... It's like a balance sheet or a profit and loss account, right? It's your accounting 101. But just by doing that, it gives them the state of their finances. Because right now they're all over the place, right? They've got side hustle going, their money coming in, going out. I've seen a lot of clients like that. There's too many moving parts. So if everything's moving, how can you create a consolidated plan? So you've got to rein in all those and then put it into that contextual plan before you can say, hey, look, you've got too much debt actually, right? You didn't realize that, but you've got debt here, you've got debt there, you've got personal debt, you've got business debt. And then there's no segregation of personal with business. So that's a typical issue with people who got too much going on, right? So again, people like that, they need this kitchen cabinet. They need this team of an accountant, a solicitor, and a financial advisor, all working in harmony towards a consistent, cohesive plan. That is the value that we could bring to them. And you don't want to be scattered, because if you're fragmented and you've got dilution, it's okay in the beginning because you're putting things together, and one may work, one may, even like properties, one might be cash flow positive, one is cash flow negative. So one is paying for the other one. So again, it's looking at your theater of operations and doing a warrant of fitness. So we'll do that for anyone. So the warrant of fitness is the commonality. That's the first thing we do.
In terms of insight, I wanted to know from you, what do you see happen in the future? What are your predictions when it comes to financial sector? And, financial planning, investment, perhaps is a large or, quite a broad question. But what do you predict to see in terms of how people deal with their money, how they save and how they invest, how they look after their money? Are you seeing a hopeful trend towards knowing what to do and an improvement? Or are you literally worried about the state of our financial well-being, especially in New Zealand?
There's a couple of parts to my answer to that. Look, there is a bit of disruption through that we're going to face. The Brave New World, which was coined decades ago. Now it's another new brave new world with AI. And there is also going to be, it's already in America, robo-advice. So robo-advice is again, artificial intelligence. Calculate. You can put your numbers in and it'll spit out a scenario for you, and it'll give you recommendations based on good practice. So a lot of people can access that. The danger with that is that, human beings are emotional creatures, right? So it doesn't really capture all the behaviors and the emotional fundamentals of a person or their personality, their biases. Of course, artificial intelligence can do that as well, right? You can do psychology through artificial intelligence as well. So I don't know where that's leading to. Really, to ask you, I have no idea. All I know is, in this sort of disruptive environment where there's all these, it's an overload of information, right? To find the right source of information, right? The trusted advice of information. So I think there's more need to have relationships with that trusted source of guidance and information, right? In this world, because it's so, it's very saturated with information, right? You can go to this calculator, that bank calculator, this company is purporting, we specialize in this, we specialize in that. Where do you go, right? So although there's access to more information, but then there's information overload as well. Coming back to how in this world, what do I see for financial security and well-being? I think it's completely going to be a different paradigm in the next 20 years, right? So, we've already had a lot of disruption from the baby boomers' time and their parents. I kind of alluded to this earlier. And now, because superannuation is going to be a thing of the past, right? You have to invest in funds, manage funds in KiwiSaver to determine your future wealth. Governments are not going to be able to afford, the government of Greece, for example, went bankrupt. It's a huge part of the GDP, the elderly population, right? There's only going to be 2 taxpayers for every retiree in New Zealand in 20 years. Not enough money, right? So for example, you asked me what's the future is. So superannuation is out. More important is for people in their 20s and 30s to assess their situation based on today's condition, right? Because today's condition is today. but you've got to do updates every year and it'll probably be even more frequent. It'll be like every quarter, every 6 months, because things are changing at such a rapid pace that you've got to be, I mentioned this course correction. So when you're flying, like when I was training to be a pilot, it was a small aircraft, right? So the wind would take me up. So I'd be course correcting all the time. Then you've got a big airline, you just put it onto autopilot. You can go out and have a cup of coffee, and chat with the passengers, right? Being the captain. But when you're in a small aircraft, you're literally fighting to keep yourself on the right direction. So it'll be a bit like that. Once you've got a financial plan, you understand your position, you know where your strengths are, you know where your weaknesses are, and you're focusing on what you can do and it enables you, then instead of waiting for a year to make sure you're still on your course, you might have to check in a bit more frequently. So I see that happening. And then an algorithm will come out, AI will be recreating those paradigms.
Can you tell me about your insights? Like, where do you see us in the next 2 to 3 months or end of year or in 2025 in terms of how people are dealing with their money? How are they saving? How are they spending? Are they doing it better? Are they doing it worse? And especially when it comes to AI, how do you think AI is really going to disrupt the financial advisory sector in terms of having your job being taken care of by an AI versus a human still doing that? And how useful is that going to be when it comes to the people receiving the services on the other end? It's so disruptive, as you were talking about this, the last few years of technology really erupting, going at as fast speed rate as we've talked about. I'd love to hear your insights on that.
Well, it's both exciting and also, it makes you apprehensive as well. Because, obviously human beings, we need to have income. So there are a lot of professions related to financial services. We've already seen it in banks. Banks are letting go of their staff, right? You've got artificial intelligence as we speak. You've got bots where you go on the website and they'll answer all your questions. They'll direct you to the right thing. You go to the right calculator. So it's already happening in financial services. It will happen in financial advice. So, I don't know what the shelf life is of a consultant or a coach like myself who actually goes personally and spends time with people and over a cup of coffee and gets to know them well. An artificial intelligence could do that probably quickly. Once you fill in all the right details, you get a good understanding of the person. So, but as long as artificial intelligence is subservient to helping humans improve their life and their lifestyles, it's perfectly fine. If it gives us more time to go out and relax and do things we enjoy, good. But if it's going to take our means of income, which it has in the recent times, then it's creating a whole new problem. So it's really something to keep an eye on. But again, we can only control what we can control.
What's your advice to whoever is listening to this episode? Your final thoughts about financial security, financial freedom, and the future?
Well, the first thing is be positive. Look at the opportunities you have and what you can control. Right? Now, this really requires you to pause everything and take stock of your current situation without letting emotion and other distractions come in, because that disrupts it. So you've got to clear time for this very important pillar of life, right? And give it a good priority. Seek out trustworthy advisors and specialists who can help you form your views on it and help guide you through this, right? Because it's out there. And for all the male audience, I would say we have to get rid of this John Wayne syndrome that, we don't talk about our money matters. It's our job. We do it, and nobody can question us on it, because it's got the same importance for us as well. And for women, actually, it's even more important because they are overrepresented in the segment of people who find themselves in financial hardship in retirement. So whatever you're doing, whatever your state in life, you can start improving it immediately, right? And it's not it doesn't require a rocket scientist to help you with that. It's just some basic fundamentals, and if you have the intention first, and you're able to clear what you want out of this process, then you will find the people, or people who can provide you with answers will appear in your life. You've got to have that intention of there's a solution out there for me, and I am going to find that solution. And with that intention, you will look for and find the resources that you need. And if that brings a financial advice company and planning company like ours into your life, then I suggest that that's a very good start for you.
Naveed, thank you very much.
You're welcome.